It is indeed a pleasure to begin my year in this way, to be able to stand before the people of God and proclaim the good news of God. It's even more exciting to have my firstborn with me on this occasion. And we're going to take a look back just briefly over the recent season of Advent as it comes to a close. As a former pastor and a current full-time hospice chaplain, I'm often asked to incorporate the wisdom of the book of Ecclesiastes in the mini memorial service I'm tasked to either officiate or participate in. And most of, if not all of us, have some reference to the biblical text. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. To everything there is a season and a time, and to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which has been planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to get and a time to loose, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. It's very familiar. And in fact, I admit that this was also the text that I chose this time last year when I eulogized my dad, who died on hospice at home in Kansas City. You see, for myself and my family, we found comfort in the melodic rhythm of the poetic text. We found the cadence soothing in some way to lull us into a state of peace and contentment that is typically categorized in our industry as the acceptance of the reality of death. And so I hold onto two particular ways from which this text speaks to me, although there are many. But the first, there is the actual teaching of the text, which reminds us for every struggle, for every difficult situation, circumstance, or occurrence in life as we know it in the flesh, that there is also a counter occurrence, if you will, that we can rely on, that we can look forward to, wherein we can find some reassurance and stability and perhaps even restore our hope. Then there's the implied lesson of the text, which calls the reader to simply be present. That whatever season we find ourselves in, to strive to be fully present there. It brings to mind for me Paul's affirmation to the church at Philippi, when he said, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I've learned that in whatever situation I find myself to be content." He said, "I know how to have plenty and I know how to have lack. I know both how to be full and to be hungry, to abound and to suffer need." So wherever we are physically or geographically, emotionally, I implore us to seek to find some semblance of peace therein. But how incredibly countercultural is the notion of lingering, of luxuriating, of abiding, of basking, as our title this morning suggests. The truth is, it's almost unheard of. So I'm an honest preacher. And the more I'm graced to share in this space, the more you will find my innate ability to divulge rather effortlessly more about me than, quite honestly, many of you may want to know. But nevertheless, on last Sunday, I shared with you that I struggle with the holiday season. That's a huge admission, particularly for a minister. But a disclosure I felt led to share, and hopefully dispelling the misconception that those of us who are charged to proclaim the good news have in some way managed the skills to hold everything together, to be fully poised and well-versed and consistently self-aware in all situations and circumstances. We don't. We aren't. We can't. And with that acknowledgement, I confess once again, as much as I struggle throughout the Advent season, I absolutely love Advent and Christmas. I love the return to childlike enthusiasm and anticipation. I love the giddiness of conversations with friends, such as Sonia Van, who is with us in the Zoom room. I love the shared reconnections with high school classmates with whom I probably haven't spoken since the Christmas prior. I love finding new ways to experience the season, new carols to sing, new music and holiday songs my young adult children introduced me to. Our annual tradition of watching the Polar Express together. I love being in the moment of the Advent and the Christmas season. But the real confession this Sunday is the frustration, the insult, and the bewilderment I felt strolling through a local department store recently when I caught a glimpse of Valentine's Day displayed right there on the shelf with tree toppers and nativity scenes. I was not happy. Now, let me pause, particularly because Maya's in the room. I love Valentine's Day. In fact, I am so excited about Valentine's Day this year because it is Maya's absolute favorite holiday. And over the years, since she left for college 10 years ago, she was either in Texas, at TCU where she went to college, or she was working, or she was traveling, and we've somehow lost the gift giving and the exchange and the excitement. So for me, she's here and she's present and she's close, and I am excited about how I'm going to top my grandest Valentine's Day gift for her, which, by the way, she hates flowers. She does not like flowers. I was determined that I was going to make her love flowers, or at least bouquets. And so in a very grand gesture, I gave her a bouquet of gift cards one year. And she said, "You got me, Mom. I think I like bouquets." So I'm excited about Valentine's Day. I really am, but I was so disappointed. And I found myself asking when. And again, in a moment of confession, not quite so politely, when and where are we simply able to be? Why the constant rush to move to the next thing, the next event, the next occasion, the next whatever, as though this very moment in time, this very breath we breathe, this extravagant miracle of witnessing the coming of the Messiah, when do we have time to just linger and languish and bask in that space? This glimpse of joy, of peace, of hope, of love, and of redemption. We rush on to the next thing as if it doesn't matter. And I was saddened. I don't know about you, but I need to cling to the gift of hope. With all of the atrocities in the world, with wars and rumors of war, separations and oppression, poverty, starvation, sexism, ageism, classism, racism, and we don't have to cross the ocean or seas to find it. It's happening right here around us. I need to hold on to hope. in the face of those realities. Just this past week, our own Disciples of Christ pastor, Reverend William Barber II, who is at least is a civil rights leader, but who also served for many years in the North Carolina State's NAACP chapter. He was recently escorted out of an AMC movie theater for wanting to use his own chair because of a degenerative bone disease that he has, and the specialized chair makes seating for him more bearable. He entered the theater with his 90-year-old mother with the great expectation of seeing the color purple. But for somebody, the placement of his chair, where wheelchairs are supposed to be seated in a space designated for individuals living with mobility issues and physical disabilities, somehow his presence in his chair disrupted their ease, and they chose to call the police. After some conversation back and forth and not being threatened with trespassing or having to completely disrupt the viewing of the movie for the entire theater, he conceded and agreed to leave. With incidents like this one and the aforementioned atrocities in the world, I desire to, I long to bask in the glow of hope. You see, my soul needs the refreshing, cascading waters of the remembrance of the coming Messiah, the presence of Emmanuel, God with us. I need tangible reminders of the life-sustaining, forever reigning Prince of Peace, time and time again. I need, and I dare say we could all benefit from the transformative power to linger a little longer, to abide a little longer, to dwell more deeply in the mystical, magical, divine glory of hope. I've come to believe one's capacity to hope establishes his or her potential to dream and compels us to believe. And it's from this posture of belief we are inspired to move. You see, the prophet Anna, who bears witness to the Redeemer, is for me the manifestation of that hope. Several ceremonies were required at the time at the birth of Jesus. One first was the circumcision, and that was to take place on the 8th day. And because the mother was considered ceremonial unclean for 7 days, the child was typically assigned a name at that time as well. But Jesus's name had already been predetermined and announced, as we remember, by Gabriel. The second ceremony is the ceremony and the presentation and the consecration of the firstborn. And then there was the purification of the mother, celebrated 40 days after birth for a son, or 80 days after the birth of a daughter. So this morning's lectionary text draws us into the second of the 3 ceremonies, the presentation and consecration of a firstborn son. See, Anna was a prophet. She was a woman through whom God spoke. And P. Williamson in the Women of Color Study Bible describes Anna as a messianic watcher and a leader who represent God calling women to prophetic leadership. Williamson also proposes that Anna was so respected that her attestation of Jesus is highly regarded. And she throws in that it was regarded so alongside that of an angel or a righteous man. It's also worth noting that Anna was an exemplar when it came to spiritual and religious practices. The text recounts her lifestyle of fasting and prayer and thanksgiving as she remained vigilant in the temple. Finally, Williamson points out later in the book of Luke that Jesus declares the temple to be the house of prayer, where Jesus himself teaches daily and follows the example of Anna. But getting back to the event of the day, within the passage, we learn that Anna was a widow of about 84 years old, and she had lingered in the temple. But at the very moment that she saw Jesus, at that moment when she recognized the Messiah, at that moment when her prayers had been answered, to live to see the coming of the Messiah, she began to praise God. And she spoke of that child Jesus to all who were looking for redemption. Anna's first look at the infant happened while Simeon was speaking to Mary and Joseph. Instantly, she recognized him, the one she had anticipated, the one she had hoped for, the one she had longed for. What a gift to tarry, to linger, to bask long enough to see the promise of God. If by some strange chance you're thinking that this sermon is an invitation to wait in the guises of hope and simply do nothing, well, that's not it at all. That's not what I or the text is proposing, but rather we wait in expectation, not just to witness the coming Messiah, but to bask in the glow and the glory of hope, to witness the presence of the Messiah with and within each of us. Yes, there are wars to end and causes to defend and relationships, personal, communal, and global to mend. Yes, injustice is relentless. Yes, hatred and oppression is relentless. Sexism, ageism, classism, racism, and discrimination are all relentless evils in the world. I'm reminded of the legendary Gardner C. Taylor, known affectionately as the Dean of Preachers, who declared, "Love is assistant, persistent, and stubborn thing." You see, God's beloved, we too are relentless. We are relentless in joy. We are relentless in peace. We are relentless in lingering, abiding, and basking in the relentless glow and glory of hope. Hope that is sustained by the persistent, even stubborn power of love. We who, like Simeon and Anna, await with great awe, anticipation, expectation, and hope, not just for the coming appearance of the Messiah, but rather we bask in the glow and the glory of hope for the indwelling of the Messiah within each of us and within the face of one another, time and time again. This, God's beloved, is the word of hope from God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.